Ladies and gentlemen, today is January 7th, 2014, and this is the KNKL Show, episode 148, where we learn to be better artists, specifically on Tuesday, because it is Tutorial Tuesday, or Walkthrough Wednesday if you live in Australia. And today we're going to be doing a tutorial on, or rather a walkthrough, of the Undead Warrior piece, which was released in my demo reel today. But before we get into that, you take a stroll down the lovely lane because we got a bunch of new submissions, awesome new submissions, that I'm going to be going through and hand selecting 3 of these to draw on tomorrow's stream. And for those of you who don't know the new rules, all art submitted to the KNKL Facebook is now deemed worthy for me to take and draw in my own style on Wednesdays. So, if you submit your character, I really like original characters, or if it's just something from some obscure game that I've never seen before, please submit it to the Facebook and it will be good to go. Oh yeah, and this is what we're focusing on today. I'm going to be showing you guys a walkthrough and a time-lapse of everything that I did to create this picture. And I figured it would be a really good way, because a lot of people have been requesting that I do stuff like this, where I show the entire process from the beginning to the end of a picture. And while that is there's so many topics to cover in that I figured, hey, it'll be a lot easier with a black and white picture. That way we can focus on just, value, composition, sketching, and then we can do another tutorial that focuses on color and hue shifting and all that stuff, which we have covered before. But the last thing I want to say is that we've reached over $100 on Patreon. So thank you guys very much for helping to support the comic. And as promised, I have released the voiceovers for Emma and Nico. So if you guys have not heard this yet, go to patreon.com/Emma or YouTube, and you can just click right here on all activity. And everybody will be able to click this link right here, and then you can hear the voiceovers for Emma and Nico right here at these 2 links. Alrighty then, peoples. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the time lapse of our lovely undead sexy lady. So, and I'm just going to be doing the same type of thing that I was doing yesterday, and this time lapse is a little bit fast. In the future, I am going to be slowing down the time lapses just a tiny bit. I'll probably pause it every now and then just to kind of show you some important things that I want to demonstrate. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about right here is, you notice that I took those first 2 sketches, I just drew them really quick and then just pushed them away. This is how I start my drawing. I start my drawing by working with shapes. And the first thing that I want to talk about is just starting thick. And I'm actually using my chalk brush right now. And for those of you who are interested in getting my own brushes, I always paste the link on YouTube down in the description, so you can download my brushes there. But notice how I'm starting really thick. I'm not worrying about details, especially in the face. Like, look at how simple these faces are. It's literally just like a row of teeth and like an eyeball. But the importance of that is that it captures a lot of the final expression that I want to take through to the final piece. And yes, more on that in just a moment. Let's go ahead and continue. So I'm drawing a couple poses here, because originally I had this idea as like, hey, I think it's really funny that this, like the undead girl's in World of Warcraft, and that's what this character is from. It's from my character in World of Warcraft. I just think it's very funny how, like, I made her face like super ugly, like it's completely gone. It's basically just like a skeleton's face, and yet they still have bodies for the most part of ladies, right? Lovely ladies. So I was like, okay, well that would be pretty funny if she was like making like a cute face at us, right? And but her face is just like completely gone. It's all skeletal and creepy looking. So yeah, I was drawing a couple different ones, and this is obviously not the final one that we went for, or the final thing that we went for. But however, this did help me come up with, I think the challenge with this was trying to come up and like draw a zombie girl basically, but still have it be reminiscent of, you could tell that maybe she was attractive when she was still alive, or even that the face is still kind of cute in its zombified skeletal state. So I was kind of coming up with stuff like that, and I drew. This is based upon what is it? I think it's the Bold armor set. It's back from Burning Crusade. I don't know if you guys were playing World of Warcraft way back then, but that was one of my favorite expansions, because after that it started to get pretty boring for me. I played vanilla, good stuff, and I did have another segment of the time lapse of me coloring this. However, that's not really relevant to what we're doing today. So I just went ahead and skipped that. And now what I'm doing is I'm using this picture over here, this drawing, as just as a reference for me to take over here. And now let's see if we can you know, make her still look attractive, but also like scary and kind of standing over you. Powerful. That's what I'm going for. Yes, powerful. So I really liked this angle, because you know we got some nice view on the boobs there, and just looks really cool. I like stuff like this. This reminds me a lot of the splashes that we would do for Riot. We'd always have the characters. You're looking up at the characters, which makes them appear large and in charge and powerful. So the next thing I want to talk about is going back to starting thick with your sketch, and then going back in and doing what I call line sculpting. And this is basically what you're going to see me do. I'm going to take these large shapes, and then I go in here, and then I basically start figuring things out. I really start kind of chiseling it away. Think of it as like a giant slab of marble, and you are there now chipping away at it, sculpting the lines to what you want them to be. And a lot of people may argue, well, that's not what you do with pencil and paper. You can't do that traditionally. That's cheating. That's cheap. I'm not going to do that. I am a pure artist. I must draw exactly the way that I do with pencil and paper digitally, right? And I actually do. I actually have some feelings towards that, or I do have some understanding towards that, because I used to be that way too. I was like, oh, well, I can't use gradient maps. I can't do these things. I can't lasso and move things over because that's cheap, or it's like it's a crutch. I'm relying too much on the program to do it. But in reality, that's kind of something that I want you guys to just get over. Because really, when the fact of the matter is that the tools are at your disposal. The tools are at your disposal. You're able to line sculpt in digital. And it works really well for me. I'm not saying you have to do it, but give it a shot. It might work just as well for you as it does for me. I absolutely love line sculpting. And I don't, you know, the other interesting thing is that I don't necessarily miss it when I transition back to pencil and paper. Because I feel like in some ways I have a little bit more control when I'm doing pencil and paper. Whereas with digital, I feel like it's a little bit more loose, a little bit more flowy, and I like to take advantage of that feeling and just kind of do, I guess, either make up for the fact that you can't be as precise, but then also the advantage of being able to sculpt like that. So, yes. Okay, another thing that I want to talk about is as I'm going through and refining these layers, you'll notice over here, look at all these. There's layer 2, copy 10, layer 2, copy 9, copy 6, copy. I'm copying layers up over and over and over again. And the quick shortcut for that is just highlight your layer over here and then hit Control J. And basically what I'm doing is I'm duplicating my sketches up over and over and over again, because sometimes what happens is I'll draw the arm a certain way, and then I'll want to try something else. You know, like you saw just earlier, I changed the arm to look like this to kind of strengthen the silhouette, make sure it's a little bit more clear. But what would really suck is if I erase that arm, redraw it, and then I can't go back. You know, there's not enough states in the history to go back to that old arm. So what I do is I just duplicate. I duplicate the old layer. That way, if I draw this arm and I don't like it, I'm going to be like, oh, I'll just delete that and go back to the old arm. And it's really, really handy. I want to make sure you guys remember that. It comes in really handy when I'm drawing faces, expressions, hands. I think faces and hands are one of the most important things when you're drawing a character. You want to make sure that those are really expressive and you just nail those. So it's really good to have multiple save states. Think of it as a save state, you know, playing games on your emulators on computer. You know, you're trying to do that perfect run, just do a save state. And that's basically what copying the layer up does. Okay, so another thing that I did here was the shield is going to be at like a really weird angle here. So I went on to Wowhead, and they have a really cool 3D preview thing there. And I just grabbed one of the shields and kind of tilted it at that interesting angle. And I also did it with the sword, but I don't pull that one up on the screen. But rest assured, it is there. It is there on the other screen, and I'm working from it. But this just really helps to see how the geometry is going to affect this shield, even though it's sort of a different shield. It just really helps me to kind of figure things out. So yeah, again, use the tools at your disposal. Don't worry if you think it's cheating or that it's cheap. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that the picture gets done and it looks awesome. Especially when you start working professionally. That's all people care about. You know, they don't care about your style or that you went into the mountains and you meditated upon the perfect composition. They don't care about that. All they care is that the picture's done. So you can do it as quick or as sloppy or as neatly as you want, as long as it's done. Okay, so another common thing that I do, another common problem that I see, not only that I do, but I see a lot of other artists kind of fall into this trap. And that is, oh no, I have to draw a sword. I have to draw a sword or like a gun or something. And what they'll do is no matter where the character is facing, they'll try to line up the sword or the gun so that it's like a perfect profile. So I don't have to draw any perspective. I don't have to draw anything, just like working with that. So this is something that is very, very bad to do because nobody holds a sword like this. Nobody holds a sword like this. Imagine this. The way that I like to remember how people hold swords is wherever your knuckles are pointing, right? Because you swing the sword like this. So that means that the hilt and like the designs are going to be pointing in the same direction. They're going to be parallel, rather, with your knuckles, right? So it's going to be like this. But right now she's holding the sword like this, so the blade is like going up and down. That doesn't work. So don't do that, okay? But quickly I notice my error and I rectify it immediately. So with proper perspective. And see, I just start with that little X, just saying, okay, this is where the hilt's going, that's where that's going. And it actually still isn't perfect. It actually still is not perfect. Her knuckles are pointing a little bit more upwards. So maybe the sword should have been tilted a little bit more down this way. But it's arguable, so I just left it. I was like, it looks good like that, so I'm just going to keep it. But if I really wanted to, I could have duplicated that layer over again and just given it another shot. Okay. So, I did want to screen cap a couple of these things, I think I wanted to. Actually, I think I'm doing a pretty good job of explaining. I hope that you guys are getting this. But actually, I'll screen cap right here. Okay, so now we're moving into values. Values. And this is something that is very easy and awesome to learn when you're working in black and white. And basically what values means is, let me go ahead and take this right here because this is a good example. Right here I'm fiddling around with these things. Okay, this is perfect. I'm going to go ahead and print screen that. Head on over to Photoshop with our notes section. And let's take a look at value. Value, what is value? Well, many of you know what value is, but I'm going to go ahead and just re-explain it to you. Okay, so the way I like to think about value is in terms of shapes. It's in terms of clarity of the picture, okay? So notice how this hair right here, and I want you guys to look over here as well. Notice how this hair is about that dark. Now let's go ahead and eyedrop the shoulder. Watch where it goes. It barely moved. So the shoulder and the hair are just about the same value. Now the problem with that is that it starts to lose a little bit of its clarity. Sometimes you don't, like if you look quickly at this picture, you may not be able to distinguish where the pauldron ends, right, and where the hair begins. So a good thing to do here, right, is to keep in mind what shapes you want to appear over the other ones. So either I have to lighten the hair and darken the pauldron, or lighten the pauldron and darken the hair. And in this case, I end up going with the latter. Okay, so watch what happens. Let's go back to the video. Okay, so I'm messing around with values right here. But see, right there. Now you can see there's a lighter value right there, and then the hair is a little bit darker. And I actually go in and I enhance this. I actually push the hair even darker because I think about, okay, I had this idea, right, that there's like a firelight coming from underneath her. It's a downward light, so it's actually going to cast a shadow. This shoulder is going to cast a shadow up onto this hair, therefore becoming a tool, and now the shoulder can appear in front of the hair very, very clearly. All right, so moving on to the next little bits. Basically what I'm doing here is I'm painting behind the lines here. Now that I've created my lines, I'm dropping in my values behind the lines right here. See, layer 2 right here, that's the lines, and layer 1. See how simple this is? I really like to simplify everything. As soon as I can, I like to simplify layers, and this is actually a separate version. I keep a separate version with all my extra layers, all the other stuff. That way, in case something absolutely terrible happens, and then I have to go back to it, which usually never happens, but it's just good to save alternate versions, duplicate your layers, all that stuff, and then simplify. When you're ready to start moving on, make a new document and just bring over the layers that you need. And all that good stuff. Moving on. So, yeah, just doing more dropping of the values behind it. And then what you guys are going to see me do very shortly is I am going to begin throwing in the background, okay? Now this is another very important thing for values to consider with your values, is you have to consider how bright is the background going to be against your character. And there's basically two ways I like to think of in terms of composition. And this is the way that I'll describe it. I can describe it with these two Emma pictures, actually. So here's example one. Squint your eyes and notice how the background all falls behind Emma because it's dark versus Emma being light. So this is composition one. This is the first way, and there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but I like to classify it into two just to keep it simple. So this is basically where your character is a lighter value than the background, okay? But then case two, and this is a very, very widely used and more common one, is where the background is lighter than the character. Now notice how you squint your eyes, you can still see the silhouette of Emma. Oh yeah, and for those of you who haven't seen this yet, this is the other version of that print there. This is going to be another print that I'm going to be making very soon. But this is the other way. So now the character is darker against the background. This one's lighter. Okay, so what I wanted to do with this one is I personally believe it's a lot easier to just do a lighter background and a darker character. I just feel like it's more natural, and I just think it's easier, so I just go for that. So anyway, so another thing that I do right here is notice how I just dropped that gradient really quickly onto there. I just took a gray gradient and then I set it to multiply. Because right now, notice how all the values are very towards this middle-ish gray. Now what happens when I drop on this gradient is, see, I tried dropping it on the top, to see what that would do, but then notice how it brings all of your attention down here. And the reason why it does that is because there's less contrast here. Now these are all like around the same dark gray color. So you look immediately where there's the most contrast. Your eyes naturally gravitate towards it. Okay, so what I do is I just flip it, right? So I put it down here, and now your eyes gravitate up to the face, where I want you to look. So let me go ahead and show you guys that in the actual file. Let me show you that in the actual file. Okay. So here is our line art right here. This is just the line art. Now I want to show you guys the background, or the values. This is the painted on values. Look what it looks like when I take away all the lines. See? That's all I'm doing, just painting right behind the lines and then allowing the lines just fill in all the extra information, rather. So there you go. So there's that, and then here is round two of values. Like I'm actually darkening the hair, getting a little bit more variation in there because these are all very close to the same values. So darker hair, lighter face. And then check this out. This is the gradient right here. This is the gradient layer. Dropping that on, now again, it pushes all the values towards the bottom of the body, closer together, less variation, less contrast. So naturally, you're now looking up towards the face. Okay? And then here is a little bit more value, I think. Maybe? Oh no, it's just the same thing. Okay, and then the background, which we are going to be getting into in just a moment. But see how it's just a light background, dark character. Light background, dark character. We can see the silhouette. Continuing. So you're actually going to see me darken things up and kind of change things up. And if you guys want to know how to Jedi mind trick your viewers, again, focus the contrast of your values in the place where you want the viewers to look, right? So the face has all these light colors and then the darkness of the eyes. Naturally, you're just going to look there. It's very interesting. A lot of people think that they can choose where they look on a piece first, but they don't. They actually don't. You can control the minds of your viewers. And I thought that was really cool. Like when I first heard about that, I was like, no way. I was like, no, you can't do that. But that was one of the most awesome things that I learned at Riot. And that's focal points. Focal points and leading the eye. Leading the eye with shapes, with flow, all that good stuff. Okay, so I actually did not time-lapse myself making the background, but I'm going to show you guys how I actually did it. I'm going to show you guys how I did it. Hey, it's a good excuse for me to just go ahead and show you. Okay, so the way that I did the background is actually quite easy. So I started with this light color right here. Then I went over to my little gradient tool. Made it so it goes from black to alpha. If you don't know how to do that, then figure it out. And I just went ahead and dropped it down like that, okay? So I start with a nice gradient of what I want the background to look like. So I was like, okay, that's a nice transition. Then all I do is I just create a new layer over top of it. And then again, I use one of my very special brushes called the Cloud Brush. Fox McCloud brush. And then what I do is I'm literally eyedropping, this range of color And then I'm going to begin texturizing it, making the clouds or making the smoke or whatever it is. And then naturally, as I press lighter, see how it looks like it goes back into space? And really, it's just a clever illusion. It's a clever illusion. So I just create big clouds up here, shrink the brush down a little bit, do some small ones back here, and there you go. I also like to grab darkness, and I'll add some darkness back into here too, like create some, I don't know, holes in the smoke. Adds a little bit more detail, makes it look cool. And just kind of do that. I almost think about it in terms of layers. It's like, see, it's like light, then gray, then dark. It's like, imagine it's layers of paper sitting over top of each other. And that naturally just, you see how now your eye just like curves around whatever's there? I think that's so awesome. And I think what it is, it's kind of like in Magic Eye. Remember how Magic Eyes worked? I could never get them to work for me. But at the end, they have all of the answers of, hey, this was a kangaroo. This was a whale. You suck at doing this book. You should just quit life, right? But I think that's what it is that the white things look closer to you, and then you naturally go back in space with the darker things, right? Up into oblivion, okay? Not Elder Scrolls. We're not talking about that. I don't like that game either. Okay, and then, but you may be asking me, what about the little sparkly things? What about these things? How do you do that? Again, it's just me cheating. Just straight up cheating. I'm just grabbing this thing, and then I go to my spatter brush. Yes, yes. I am a talentless digital artist. I just use brushes. But yeah, that's it. That's literally all I'm doing. Just dropping in, oh, a little spatter there, a little spatter there, a little spatter here and there. And what's really cool about this, guys, is this kind of goes into a theory that I have, a small theory that I have. And that theory is, basically this drawing is not really that detailed. It's actually not that detailed. You can still, I mean, there's still the lines there. It's very comic booky. And I ended up refining it with the overpaint layers. But I really believe that if you want your pictures to look like they're really detailed or really finished, all you have to do is add in just areas of small detail. In this case, it's the little embers flying around. And then it just gives you, I don't know what it is, but you look at it, and when you see like little dots or little things of detail throughout a picture, it almost tricks the mind into saying, hey, that must have taken a long time to do. This must be a detailed piece. This must be a professional piece, right? When really it was just a stupid brush or whatever, you know? So, but small details. And again, that's a theory that's in progress of mine. So, all right, moving on to the rest of the time lapse. We have a few more things to discuss. Now we're moving into what I call the OP time, OP layers. And what OP layer means is now we are finally going above and beyond everything that we have created, and we are beginning to paint over everything, over the lines, over the values, over all that stuff, okay? So let's go ahead and put that main thing on. Huh, that's funny. I almost like that background more than the other one. All right, well, let's just change it. Change it. Okay, so now we're moving on to the OP layers. Let me show you exactly. I'll just turn the OP layer on and off, and you can see what it does. Okay, so right here I'm focusing on like the chest plate. You can see me doing a little bit of stuff on the hair, stuff like that. But basically all I'm doing is I'm going in with, again, my chalk brush. This is my go-to brush. I love using this brush. Everything about this brush just freaking rocks. And the reason why, again, is because look at how look at what this thing does. Like, as you do transitions and stuff, it just automatically has texture in it. And that's what you're seeing right there. When I'm kind of shading the edge, right? Or shading the edge of the breastplate right there, I'm just doing that. And then because all of those little, specks are still in there, it looks like it's a texturized and detailed picture, but it's really just one brush stroke. Really, really cool reason why I like that. And it's something that you can't get. You can't get that texture with this brush or with the hard round brush. Can't get that texture with that. It's just all one thing. So that's why I would recommend that you guys look into some texturized brushes. See what works well for you. Maybe the chalk brush works for you. Maybe there's tons of brushes out there. So find which one you like, which one fits your style. I love this chalk brush. It's freaking awesome. And you can have it too for the low price of nothing. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to some more overpainting. Okay, so here's some more overpainting layers right here. And you can see what I'm doing is I'm focusing on blending transitions. Blending transitions. So a good example of this is, let me just go ahead and draw it over this. Again, I'm just eyedropping and then I'm blending, right? So you can't necessarily see the edge of these brush strokes, right? So I do stuff like this. See, now this is a smoother transition. It looks a lot more clean and smooth. We like stuff like that, okay? But you still want to make sure that you're capturing the same shape that was there before. See how it's like this little triangle? You gotta make sure you don't lose that. So anyway, that's what I do with the whole face. And notice how subtle it is. Really how subtle my overpaint layers are. I'm not doing that much. And you don't need to do that much. You don't need to paint over the entire picture to make it look good. I really think it's just a couple things, specifically in your focal areas, like the face and the hand. All right, so the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is adding a little bit of color to your black and white pieces, because I think it's really cool when you just add a little bit of like red or kind of orangish color to it. Because see, this is just straight black and white, and I added a little bit of red and kind of desaturated it. I think this just adds, it gives it more life, gives it a little bit of life to it. Maybe sepia, or is that sepia? I don't know how to say that. Is it sepia or sepia? Anyway, I'll say sepia because it sounds cool. I like sepia. And that concludes that. So let me show you guys how to add the color on. Okay, and it's actually very, very easy. Imagine that. Imagine that, it's easy. Okay, so you've got your background, and I'm going to go ahead and desaturate it so it's actually perfectly gray. Okay, these are very minute changes that you probably won't notice. But in the end, it makes all the difference. Okay, so we've got our character, and here's what you want to do. When you get done, or when you get to a point that you have a character that you like, right, where it looks good, a really good way to basically compile all of your layers, like see, this is all the layers that's making up this character. A really good way to make just a flat, I almost think of it as like a sticker of your final character. All, like the whole painting is now just on one sticker thing. All you have to do is duplicate your group right here, like that, and then you merge it. Merge the group. And then you have a flat sticker of your character, which is easily varied, and you can make all kinds of changes to it and make it look cool. Okay, so the way that you add color, and then we're going to end on this. In the meantime, while I'm explaining this, question catapult anything that you have over into the KNKL kingdom. I'll answer that and we'll end today's show. Okay, so the way that you add color to a black and white picture is, I'm going to move this down so you can actually see. Select your layer, and then you're going to go to Image, Adjustments, Variations, the bottom choice. Very secret. They hid it down there because they didn't want you to know about it. Variations. Okay, so, and then I'll add a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow, so it's kind of like orangey like this. But then you're like, oh, that's too orange. That's way too orange. And do the same thing with the background. Go to Variations. And then you should be able to just hit Current Pick. I think that just chooses the last one that you did. So it will match your character. So then you'll get that. And now all you simply need to do is go to Control U, which is your hue transistor radio. And you're going to drop down the saturation till it is to a point that you like it, right? See, I like to kind of drop it down all the way. So it's like, okay, no, this is gray. And I gradually add color until it looks to the point that I want. I'm like, okay, that's good, right there. And then I remember this number right there, 74, negative 74. And we go to the background, which is also compiled onto one layer. Then we just type in that same number, so that way it matches, negative 74. Boom, baby! And there you have a very cool black and white piece with a little bit of added color. And I hope that me showing you my process really helped you guys out a lot. I know you guys have asked for this for a long time, so I hope I explained it well, and we'll definitely do some more of these. In the meantime, let's take some questions. Meantime, let's take some questions. Okay. Tack 1997 is asking, when I finish cleaning the lines and then I want to fill it, the filled area has a sharp edge like a pencil brush, if you know what I mean. How do I fix that? Oh! I know exactly what you're talking about. Tack. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I know how to help you with that. I know how to help you with that. Okay, so there's two ways that you can do this. There's two ways that you can do this. And I will demonstrate both of them right now. Okay, so what you're probably running into is this. You're probably running into this right here. So let's draw our man. Let's draw our happy man here. Okay. And I'd imagine you have a little bit of like sketchiness on the edges there. Okay, so when you draw something like this, right? If your lines at the outside lines are not perfectly crisp, here's what happens. You will select everything around him, as I have said before, and then you will invert that selection. Then you'll fill him with a color. Let's do this one. Let's make sure we're doing it properly. Okay. So now you're probably talking about this. You're talking about these little things. These little artifacts and things that stick off the edge of your line art. And the way that you go about fixing this is you can go back and you can check out the masking tutorial where I go into this in depth. But basically all you have to do to avoid this is you just have to go into your line art before you mask it. And this is something that I always do. I always do this now. And I take my ink brush, which is a full opacity. You don't have to press hard to get it to work. And you set it as your eraser. And then you just go around the edges of your drawing like this. And basically you cut away the excess fat. Cut away the excess fat. Much like that. Okay? So that's one way to do it. And now when you select it and you invert it, it should, see how it hugs the edge perfectly? But then I want to tell you about one other thing that you can do. And this is what I actually did with the Tankana piece, because I didn't want to, I didn't feel like going through and like doing all that stuff, right? So the other way that you can do it is you go to select and then you go to modify, okay? Once you've selected everything around the character, you go to modify and you go to expand. I personally like to set this as an action button, and then I bind it to a hotkey. And if you want a tutorial how to do that, just look up how to create an action button or how to bind an action. But basically, I'll expand it by 3 pixels and see what that does. Okay? And see how it kind of brings it in a little bit? It kind of tucks it in a little bit. And I have my expand by 3 pixels button set to F3. Right? So I can just hit it over and over and over again until it gets to about the point where it's within the lines, and I know that when I Control-Shift-I and reverse it, it will be well within my character. Like that. Oh. Like that. Oh no. Come on. Like that. Okay. So, I hope that helps you out. Oh. Whoops. Oh. Okay. It looked like at first I was not answering the proper question, but I think that fixed it. Okay, good. Yeah, I hope that helps you out, Tech. All right. Let's see. Any other questions? Oh, Roan Dog is asking how I made the outro animation. I actually made that in After Effects, Adobe After Effects, and I'm using an old version. It's only CS3, so if you guys are interested in that, I think you can actually get the whole Creative Suite for free off of adobe.com, so you guys should definitely check that out. In fact, I just downloaded Photoshop for my little brother on his old computer and CS2. All that stuff is free. Basically, it does everything that CS3 and above does. So it's very, very cool. My brushes, I don't know if they translate over to Paint Tool SI. You can try. I haven't done it. Let me know how it goes. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to end today's show. Thank you once again for joining me live on Twitch. I hope that you've gotten some value out of this. I hope I have explained my process in a way that is appropriate and helpful to you. Please submit anything that this helps you out with to the Facebook. Remember, I'm going to be drawing your characters tomorrow. Super excited for that. You guys take care of yourselves. I'll see you tomorrow. Till then, take care.